Hello, hello. Let me actually get all of these go live buttons pressed here so that way we are moving right along. Okay, yes, that one's working. Okay, so we're here to talk about why boundaries fail without financial power. And before I jump into it, just a quick gut check. When you think about the last time you tried to say no or hold a boundary or do something different than the norm, what were you really protecting? Was it your peace or was it your paycheck? We're going to talk about that elephant in the room, boundaries and bills, right? Like you've read the articles, you practiced the scripts, you've even said no once, and then you spent the next week being anxious about it. What if the problem isn't your confidence or your communication skills? The problem was your cash flow. Yeah, no one wants to talk about it. And that's why we're here. We're going to unpack the hidden link between boundaries and bank accounts because you can't confidently protect your peace if you're financially cornered. Now, before I bring up our guest, I have to get on my soapbox because I hear this a lot during my workshops. I hear boundaries are about distance, and it's hard to put distance between what I love and the hours in the day and how I show up. Boundaries are not about distance, they're about design. They're about how you design your energy, your time, and your contribution so you can lead with balance at the top of mind. And most of us know the language of boundaries. You say no, you protect your time, you communicate clearly. But the truth is, boundaries only hold when they're backed by safety. And you can't lead with power if you're constantly afraid of losing it. So that's why I wanted this conversation with Arielle, because when we talk about self leadership, financial power, it's the missing piece. And it's the difference between confidence and actually feeling free. So let me bring Arielle up here. Um,
Oh,
joining me, hi Arielle. Joining me is
hi.
Arielle Deane. She is a trading educator and a financial mentor. She helps women build financial safety nets so they can stop negotiating from fear and start leading with freedom. Because again, boundaries without backup, they aren't boundaries, they're wishful thinking. So, Arielle, I'm so glad that we're able to talk together. And because you and I, we had a coffee, we were just like unpacking some of the things that we see in our work separately that are holding women back. And we talked about just a no-win situation. I like to call it kind of like a boundary paradox. Like it's when we know what we should say to draw a line, to create breathing room. But basically we know all the shoulds, but then there's so many can'ts. Like my mortgage won't let me, I can't. My tuition won't let me, I can't. Or my favorite is my dream trip, my dream vacation to Paris won't let me. It won't fund itself. So tell me, when we talk about boundaries, it's easy to sound like it's a mindset issue, but for so many women, it's a math issue. You can't afford to lose your job for the sake of principle. So, Arielle, how do you help women navigate this tension without burning out or selling out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so real and honest. And thank you so much for having me on, as I love talking about money and freedom and all of the things. And it's true. I mean, I think that was definitely part of my story. I was in a job that, like, it was a fine job, right? Like, I think a lot of us are like, it's okay. It's a fine job. It's not what we wanted.
Yeah.
But every single time I thought about, like, oh, I kind of want to do something else, I want to leave,
Yeah.
I was like, well, I can't leave. I can't say anything to her. I can't leave all the time for anything with my daughter because I don't want to get fired. I don't want them to
Yeah.
think I'm not serious about the job. And so having that financial safety net is so powerful. And I talk to a lot of women about, like, how would you move differently
Mm.
if you were in a different financial situation? And for a lot of us, right, if we just had a little bit more cash, if we just had a little bit more room, we would walk different, we would talk different, we would be more confident, we would put down, we would be a lot more willing to hold to those boundaries, right? To let people know like, hey, I don't work on Sundays, right? We would be able to do more of those things. And I think that's always an eye opener of like, if I'm really behaving so differently because of money, then that means the money is really grabbing a hold of me. That means it's really stopping me from truly living out the life that I want to live. And I think that's really important for us to get honest about and real about.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story I had with a client, Melissa. She promised herself she would stop staying late for meetings, stop staying late for meetings that weren't hers to run. Like she would even block her calendar, and she finally had the confidence to say no. But the next week, her manager said, "Hey, I really need you to stay for that meeting." And she just caved immediately because, again, it was the math that was driving her. So we had a lot of work to do just to shift that power and help her realize that boundaries, they need leverage, right? Because, confidence without options, it isn't confidence. My grandmother would say,
True.
confidence sounds good until you have rent to pay. So tell me, when you teach women how to create financial breathing room, why is it such a game changer? Oh, looks like I lost. Oh, where did she go? I lost her. Maybe she'll come back and join me here in a second. But I like what Ariel mentioned before about you have to make sure that you have the confidence in yourself before you set those boundaries in order to make those boundaries happen. Because again, without the financial backing, it's a lot of the things that help us set boundaries really, really hold us back. Um, so what I was saying about my grandmother is would say, oh, maybe it's me that lost. Oh, here we go. Here's Ariel. She's back.
Sorry
Here
about
you
that. I
go.
don't
Here
know
you
what
go.
happened. Yes,
Okay,
we're back.
so let me ask the question. You teach women how to create breathing room. Why is that such a game changer? Because you talked before about asking, like, hey, what would happen if you had breathing room, if finances didn't lead every decision? But what is that breathing room? How does it change things for them?
It changes everything. I think a lot of the women that I work with, they're high achieving women. They have done all of the things. We have all of the degrees. We've achieved all the markers. But a lot of us just like, I can't take a break. Like I had one woman that I worked with very early on. She is had some health issues. She has been really frustrated. They just keep piling things on. And for her, it was like, I just want to be able to take a break. I just want to be able to pause, think about
Mhm.
what I want to do next. I want to be able to figure out how to handle this healthcare issue. And yes, right, you can put out for leave, you can do a lot of these other things. But for her, it really was like, I can't go that long without having right income and money. And so by learning how to trade, that has really given her the confidence to be able to say, hey, I can take this break for a while to figure out what I want to do next. So what
Mm.
I talk to people a lot about was for me, right? Trading, I started off doing like, I don't know, every single side hustle. Like if you talk about a side hustle, I have tried it. I
Yeah.
have tried doing Amazon things. I have created journals. I did all of the things, but I was like, I need something that like actually is going to pay me some substantial money
Mm.
and that wasn't requiring me to like run myself further into the ground. Sometimes
Yeah.
I would still have to have clients. I would still have to do all these follow-ups if I was consulting. And I was like, this is too much. And so really what happens with stock trading, it was just like the perfect safety net. And it allows a lot of my students to trade, to make a little bit of additional income, continually pile that income up. And then it's like, okay, wait a minute, if I need to step away for a while, I can do it and not freak out, right? Or if I want to take a break from my business. So some of the women I work with are entrepreneurs. Like I have someone, she wants to take a break. She's like, I want to do this trip with my family. And it's like, but I don't know if I can do that with my business. And I was like, well, let's do this, right? So this can be your cushion if you have a few months that are a little bit slower, right? And so that's where I think trading really comes in and it gives you breathing room. You don't have to become, I always say to people, you don't have to become a full-time trader. Like I don't even do day trading. I don't teach people day trading because you're not
Yeah.
trying to become a professional trader.
Like
But
the movie, right?
Right, you don't need to become the Wall Street, shark or whatever it's called, but it's always surprising to people how, like, just a few trades can start to add up and give them a little bit of extra few $1,000s a month that just
Mhm.
allows you to have more peace and to take more time away and to have a little bit more control over your time and your energy.
Yeah, I like the way that you said that because, trading could sound a little scary, but when you look at the other side of the equation, like your peace, breathing room, not having all of the hustle, that kind of makes it interesting or builds a curiosity because we know what's behind door number one. Door number one is 9 to 5, say yes when your body is whispering no, keep
Mhm.
going. But perhaps if you could build that fund to create safety, safety behind your decisions, safety behind your boundaries. And I like the boundary that you brought up, like an entrepreneur who just wants to go on vacation, right? Because as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like if you aren't there to turn the lights on, if you aren't there to, push live, if you aren't there to micromanage everything, it doesn't happen. And we
Right.
often think that entrepreneurship is like the secret, but often you have to have other things going in the background, be multifaceted, right? So that way you can create boundaries. And I just want to take a beat to talk about boundaries because often people think about boundaries as like this hard line, like you step over this line, you're going to get some repercussions, those types of things. But boundaries, it's really a circle around the things that you want to protect. Do you want to
Yeah.
protect your time, your mental capacity, your energy? Do you want to protect your ability or even create space to go on vacation or create space
Mhm.
to not always be at someone else's, under
Mercy.
someone else's thumb? We'll say it like that,
Right, yeah, yeah.
So, Ariel, a lot of women hear financial independence and they think, ooh, this means quitting my job or being debt free by next Tuesday. But in your work, what actually does it mean to lead yourself financially?
So one of the things that I talk a lot about is I want everyone that I work with to understand that there's a difference between financial freedom and what I call financial flexibility. And I actually did a podcast about this recently. Like, I remember the first time I heard about financial freedom, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. But one, I'm not going to eat ramen noodles forever. I have a daughter who is 9. Like, there are certain times when things have to happen. And I was like, that sounds great. But like, that is so far away. I might as well just keep working this by the time I get to 60 to be able to be
Yeah.
financially free. But I think a lot of us underestimate something that I call financial flexibility, and
Ooh.
that's about giving
Oh,
yourself enough of a cushion that
yeah.
you have more flexibility to choose the type of work that you want to do, to choose the type of location where you want to live, to be able to do some small moves of things that make you feel more aligned to the life you want, even if you have to start working, right? I mean, even if you have to keep working, I should say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example, like I always tell people, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but you might want to just try it. I did a lot of business coaching initially, and because my background is in strategy business, I did a lot of business consulting. And so many women, especially Black women or women of color, have these ideas, have these missions, things we want to do, but
Yeah.
we don't ever do it because we're like, oh, I can't take the leap. I don't know if I'd be able to do this. I don't know if I want to be an entrepreneur. And the reality is, most of us don't know if we want to be entrepreneurs, right? But it's the people who have enough of a cushion, who have enough flexibility to
Yeah.
just take little baby steps in that direction that actually get there. And so I say, like, don't try to figure out how you're going to become completely financially free and never have to work and only live off of the 4%. Like, I believe in a lot of those mantras.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, even if you retired now, like, I don't know, I'm 43, even if I retired now, I'm going to have to do something for the
Yeah.
next 20 some odd years. And
Yeah.
so often it's really more about getting closer to being aligned with the work that you want to do. And a lot of us are stuck in jobs we feel like we have to keep because they pay the bills, because it pays for my daughter's private school, right? Or whatever it might be. But once you have more of a financial safety net,
Mhm.
then you're able to say, actually, I can take a little bit of a leap. Not even a leap, I like to call it a stretch, right? I can stretch myself a little bit into this new uncomfortable area, because
Yeah.
it's not going to mean I'm going to go broke. It's not going to mean my child has to eat ramen noodles for dinner. And so that's why I think it's really important to, sure, like, yes, striving for financial freedom, I think is still a great thing. But for a lot of us, at least for me and a lot of people I work with, it just felt unattainable.
Mhm.
And so what I really talk more about is, but there's so much power in financial flexibility, even if
Yeah.
it just gives you enough time to take a sabbatical, right? That's what I did. I was like, I need to leave this job, but I'm not ready to like leave yet, right? So I was like, let me do a baby step, right? I can
Yeah.
take a
Yeah.
sabbatical. And that became really freeing. And then once I did that, I was like, okay, maybe I actually can step more into these aligned versions of what I want to do. But it was
Yeah.
because I had a safety net and I knew, hey, at the end of the day, I can make money on my own terms and I don't have to wait and ask permission from somebody else.
Yeah, and I really like the labels that you're using, or at least the language that you're using around it, like financial flexibility. That feels doable. It feels like, okay, I'm building flexibility through finances in order to set boundaries, in order to pursue, my calling or my dream, or even to take a sabbatical. And I also like stretch, just the word stretch, right? Because
Yeah.
that doesn't feel like it's a hard sell. It feels like I mean, we stretch every day, right?
Right?
It feels like something small, and that's what I talk about regarding self-leadership, is it's about taking small steps to lead yourself differently, right? Because we as driven women, we are so good at leading other teams, leading projects, leading our families, but what about leading ourselves, right? And that
Yeah.
starts with looking in the mirror, and first, let's change some of the language that we're using, right? Maybe when they come to your webinar or learn more about you, if you just open up your mind, trust me, I'm gonna do it. I'm a know-it-all. Okay. So for you to even use words and language that speaks to me, I'm like, okay, maybe I could, kind of flex a little bit to that. I like that. So let's make this real. When women hear the word trading, some think Wall Street or complicated charts, but you teach it in such a way that's accessible. Help me understand why you do it that way, and like what people should expect, through working with you.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, one of the first things I say off the jump is everyone assumes that trading means I'm a day trader. I'm staring at screens all day. I'm hyper nervous and anxious. That is like the furthest thing from the energy, right? My goal was not to exchange one stressful situation for another. And the reason why I created the program this way was it's literally out of my own lived story. So I always
Yeah.
tell people this is not theory, right? I didn't go to business school and decide I want to come out and teach people how to trade stocks. This
Yeah.
was through my own lived journey of realizing I needed money. I was a little bit in debt. I had a lot of big goals and dreams for my life, for my daughter's life. But I was feeling like I was being drained. I was doing this horrible commute. I was not loving what I was working on, but I felt stuck. I felt like I didn't have any other option. And so, like I mentioned, I tried, like, okay, I was like, I can stay up late at night. I can sell things on Amazon. I can do all these journals. I can try to learn how to do everything. Like, I tried every single hustle that was ever on Instagram. I have probably tried it. And I realized I was actually burning myself out more trying to
Oh.
do all these hustles all night long, every weekend. And so I finally stumbled on trading. And at first, I was doing day trading because that was what I learned. That was the program that I had learned about. I had learned a little bit in business school about stock trading, but didn't really understand how I would apply it. And so as I started doing it, I was making money, right? Like I started making a little bit here, and I was like, okay, this is not so bad. But it was stressful as day trading. And so
Mhm.
I went and I found like every shortcut imaginable. And so what I actually call it is I teach what I call lifestyle trading,
Mm.
where I'm going to show you how you can actually trade stocks in a much more moderate fashion. And I found a lot of the shortcuts. So a lot of the things that get people stuck in trading are learning the technicalities, right? It's learning how to read charts, it's learning how to understand what's happening on Wall Street. If you use the tools that the pros use, we can shortcut that whole process. And so
Mm.
I show my students how to systematize their trades, how to use hacks so they can get to making money a lot faster. And I've cut the learning curve in half. And it was because I had a full-time job. I was the primary parent for my daughter. I did not have time to be looking at charts and doing all of the things, but I could tell that trading was going to be the perfect safety net for me because I was actually able to make real money, right? Like I was actually able to see myself making $2,000, $8,000, $10,000 at a time.
Yeah.
And it didn't require a lot of extra work. I had no boss. There was no manager. I had no employees. I had no clients. The market is only open till 4 p.m. So I didn't have to do it late at night, right? Like I can set it up one day a week and then just let it run. And so that just became like the perfect safety net for me. And that is how people learn how to do it in a much more sustainable way, is what I really want people to understand.
I like that, especially because, when you jump in, often we think, hey, we got to jump in both feet, we're going to have all the screens open. But I like how you take it in baby steps to make it accessible. And, for so many of us, money has been taught as a stressor, not
Mm.
necessarily a source of safety. So, like, how do you help women rewrite that story mentally before they even start trading? Like, I like your example or just your story about how you tried all the things. Like, you have the hacks because you're like, hey, this is not sustainable. Like, how
Mhm.
how do women start thinking differently?
It's a great question because I like to say there's three parts to how you're going to be able to get yourself free. Is you do have to have a mindset shift. Most of us who are high achievers, we were taught, hey, if you do all the right things, if you get the degrees, if you work for the great job, they're going to take care of it. They're going to protect you. But I think we can all see, right, from layoffs, from government
Yeah,
shutdowns, whatever it
yeah,
might be, right? We do have to protect ourselves. There's not going to be someone out here who's trying to make sure that we do everything right and that we're going to be okay. So I
yeah,
think there's that first level of it. But I think the second most important piece around that mindset shift is the way you think about money. And so I've always hung around people. I've always been interested in making money. I've always been interested in how we grow wealth. But I always thought it was like, you just got to keep making more, right? You got to earn more.
yeah,
You've got to
yeah,
have the higher paying job. And I think even the proliferation of everything about have 7 forms of income and all these things, right? They're all really burning us out and nobody's making a lot of
too
money.
much. Yeah,
But I like to think about it in a slightly different framework. And so what I say is there really are three pieces that helped me, and this is what I teach a lot of my students to think about, is in order to get to where you want to go and have a lot more freedom, you do need a way to make money, right? That's the first thing. You need a way to
okay,
make money. So whether it's your job, whether it is a business, whether it is trading, you need a way to make money. But the part that I think most of us miss is you need a way to multiply your money. Because if you have to be a part of making your money forever, you will be working and burn out probably
mhm,
forever if you want your
yeah,
money to grow. And so
yeah,
the only ways that I have found that have been great to multiply your money without a lot more effort are investing and trading, right? So I teach people how to trade what are called stock options, and it literally allows you to multiply your money at 3 to 5 times the rate as if you were just investing or if you were just saving your money. And it's then like once you actually can start accumulating more income, then we want to do what I call memorialize that, right? So that's when we want to start buying bigger assets, things that are tangible, things that we can hand down and have a legacy. And so I
yeah,
think about it as really teaching people it's not about having 7 different streams of income. You don't have to become an entrepreneur that kills themselves, but you need to have all three of those components, right? So memorializing to me is usually real estate. I love real estate. Real estate has made me a lot of money as well, but that's how to think about kind of building it. Is making sure that you know how to make it, how to multiply it, and then you can find a way to memorialize it. And
yeah,
often we tend to skip one of those pieces or the other. And
yeah.
that is what leads us into these cycles of burnout and going over and over and wondering what's happening and why we're not getting any further.
Yeah, I like that you called out skipping because often we just want to get to that, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? But you have to start small, then multiply it, right? And then on top of that, I like how you said memorialize it. Like, come on, like
Mhm.
what did we do that was effective so that way we can do it again, right? Because
Right, right,
often we
right.
just jump, and it's reassuring that you would be by my side, or at least your framework would be by my side to help me through that process. Because I read somewhere, people are like, hey, I went to all these colleges, but no one really taught me financial literacy, right? They just taught
That's
me go
true.
get a job, make some money, live below your means, and everything will be fine. But
Mhm.
sometimes what's that 9 to 5 is driving you nuts, right? It's
True.
pushing you beyond your limit, or you feel like you don't have space to raise your hand to do other things. You don't have that flexibility. So, Ariel, let's get tactical. For the woman listening, thinking, okay, I want breathing room, but where do I even start? What's step one?
So, one of the first things I think is really important is actually get clear on what breathing room looks like, right? So,
Okay.
what is that number? What is that? Was that an extra $1,000 a month? Is that an extra $5,000 a month? Because sometimes we think it's like, well, I just need a lot more money, right? I need a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what I always tell people, to your point around jumping or
Yeah.
trying to skip to it, people always want to come in like, well, I want to be able to make $10,000 tomorrow. And it's like, well, then you're going to lose all your money, right? Because it doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. But we
Yeah.
underestimate how, like, to your point around, like, if we stack those wins, they
Mhm.
start to add up really quickly, right? Because you can
Yeah.
very easily start to make $250 a week or $500 a week in trading. Now you're at $2,000, right? That might be able to get you some more breathing room. That might be able to pay your car note. That might be able to take care of groceries. And so I really teach around like pick off a few expenses at a time. And
Mhm.
then before you know it, you've taken care of all of your expenses, right? It's much easier to say, hey, I did this thing and this made me $500, and that there goes my car note. Now I made another one that paid off my
Yeah.
daughter's school fees. And that's another thing,
I like
right?
that. I
It's a
like that.
lot
Yeah.
easier for you to do that and keep going than
Yeah.
for it is to say, well, I have to make $10,000 or this is never going to work, right? Because then you're never going to get started. So,
Right.
one, figure out what that number is, but then try to break it down. And you just want to pick off an expense at a time, right? Once you
Mm.
can cover all your expenses, you have a lot more freedom and flexibility. And so you can start to do little things and build and stack it until you started to cover everything that you need to cover. So I would say that's probably the first thing to start doing.
Yeah, and for those who are listening in, I wanna ask you, like, what truth about your finances have you been avoiding because it's uncomfortable? Because that question that Ariel just posed, like, what does breathing room look like? Like, let's get clear, because sometimes, again, it's just a dream. If only I had $1,000,000, and it's like, really? Do you just want your car note paid off? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
let's
Yeah.
actually write down these goals, or what feels good, right? Breathing
Mhm.
room. So that way we can meet those goals or find out how to reach them one chunk at a time. Because if you don't do that, that's when you start skipping steps. And then that's when you start squandering some of the things that you do, right? You may have like a little track record that's going good, but you never got to what would really make you happy, right? Maybe you want tuition paid off, but you got excited because you made a little money.
Very true.
So,
That's very true.
yeah, yeah. Oh man. So, I mean, Ariel, this conversation, I mean, I feel like we could talk more about this because there's just so many. This is just unspoken. This is the elephant in the room, because a lot of the women that I work with, again, boundaries are great. But again, if they don't have that FU fund or the option fund, it's really
Yeah.
hard for them to feel safe enough or confident enough to move the way that they need to, or to even show up differently. So
Yeah.
for listeners, just one piece of one thought I want to leave with you is like, what would change in how you show up if your paycheck wasn't your permission slip? Like, let's think through that, and then actually try to
Yeah.
like think through some of these goals and get clear. So that way when you do meet up with Ariel, or find Ariel, it's an easier conversation. I like that first step. So I want to end on this thought. We can't lead ourselves powerfully if we're operating from fear. And financial freedom, it gives you choices, and choice, that's where self leadership begins. And if you're ready to stop setting boundaries that crumble under your pressure, you have to start by building your flexibility fund. I'll use Ariel's word. So,
Yeah.
Ariel, where can people find you?
Yes. And thank you so much. This is awesome. I think we don't talk about the money piece enough. And it
Yeah.
is so important because money is the tool to get us to those options and our freedom and those choices. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the number and we forget really
Yeah.
what the goal is overall. So everyone can find me. I'm on LinkedIn mostly at my name, Arielle Deane, or you can find me on Instagram at The Independent Mom, which is also the name of my podcast, The Independent Mom. So look out for me there as well.
Very good. And I also wanted to note that I actually have a masterclass coming up. I will put a note in the comment if you're interested in learning about leading yourself differently, one tiny shift at a time. Before we leave, for those of you who stay to the end, I want to ask you, what boundary do you wish you could set if fear of money wasn't holding you back? Right? Because I want you to remember, self leadership, it isn't about control, it's about choice, and you deserve both. Thanks, everyone.